do you have the pleasure of speaking with?
David Hudgens.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will be interviewing you based on prompt 1, which is about the Aunt Edna problem. The Aunt Edna problem acts as an outlier or unusual event that is the norm regardless of the evidence. I would give you an example, which is like Aunt Edna is terrified of going into the ocean because she knows that she's going to be eaten up by a shark, even though it's very unlikely to happen. So I would like you to please identify an Aunt Edna problem that your Aunt Edna and like what she would have trouble believing in.
Okay. So my Aunt Edna would have trouble believing that the modern day police aren't actually bad. So she'll feel like anytime she gets pulled over, that she's going to get either harassed, shot, and killed, or beaten.
Okay, thank you. Okay, why do you think, like, what contributes to your Aunt Edna struggling to believe that won't happen to her? Like, is it her class, her race, her gender, socialization, or a combination of multiple factors?
I would say it's a combination of multiple factors, and I'm going to add one. It's the fact that she grew up during the 80s, 90s, and 70s, because back in those days, there weren't things to protect a person's civil rights, such as body cameras, dash cameras, and protocols. Extensive training on how to de-escalate a situation. It was particularly known that in the 90s that if a police officer stopped you, they can literally stop you for no reason. And that's what, at the time, that is when they would, especially in lower income neighborhoods, they could actually like beat you up. And in some cases, they'll put you in the back of a car, take you to another part of town, and then drop you off all the way over there. And threaten people, extort people. And that's just a result of the 90s, that mindset, which is true because, back then, cops didn't have the best reputation because there were a lot of crooked and corrupt cops. But Edna, because of that, would have a hard time believing that nowadays that corruption and extortion, it's rare because of the steps that have been put in place to protect her rights as a citizen.
Okay, thank you. You did mention that it was like a combination of multiple factors. Could you, by any chance, identify what those factors were?
So one of them would be experience. Another factor would be growing up as a minority, and then lower income, being in a lower income community.
Thank you. Okay. What do you think is the most convincing evidence to show your Aunt Edna about the validity of your claim?
So there was a study done by The Guardian, and it's literally titled U.S. police have killed nearly 600 people in traffic stops since 2017, which you may be thinking that's such a terrible number, but this article was written in 2022, and it's compiled data, about people who have been shot, and it only comes up to 600 people, which in your mind you may think, oh wow, that's a lot. There should be no people shot by police during traffic stops, but you got to remember there are those extraneous situations, such as they pull a gun on police first and police shoot them, or there are people threatening, or they got to neutralize a threat because it's going to hurt more people. And when it really comes down to it, it's only about 10% of people. 10% of traffic stops result in an actual death caused by police alone, which is not as high as a figure as people would think it is. And I solely believe that 10% comes from those situations where the police would have to discharge their firearm, because nowadays they're trained to take every measure to not discharge it unless reasonable force has been used.
Okay, thank you. Also, what evidence do you think, or explanations do you think, would be dismissed by her?
So a lot of people, or she would probably believe that like it's a big problem because of recent events such as George Floyd. But when you put it into perspective, you have to realize that before George Floyd, there wasn't really any other high-profile major case of an obvious police brutality like victim, and it just goes to show that cases like that are amplified a lot by the media to push an agenda that they may have to try to influence people in a certain way to think like them and vote and do things according to their agenda. And I believe that if Aunt Edna was just simply like look at the facts, look at the percentage, she'd realize that when she gets pulled over, there's absolutely nothing she needs to worry about because she's worrying about a rare case.
Okay. Is there anything else you would just like to add that isn't on the prompt but you think is necessary to say?
I would just like to say that, modern day policing, there are so many, I touched on it earlier, there are so many things put in place, like there's training, like police officers are trained to use their batons, their tasers, pepper spray, non-lethal guns, and then even combat before they even have to discharge their weapon. And when it comes to it, the reasons behind them discharging their weapons, the requirements are very, very strict. It has to be purely and very obviously in their own self-defense. Secondly, when it comes to canine dogs, the canines, they're not allowed to bite a person unless the person is physically about to harm another person or is using lethal force or threatening lethal force, because even the canines are seen as weapons and they must be used only whenever force is justified. And body cameras are worn by cops, and unlike older body cameras, the newer modern body cameras worn by most big police forces, they're actually constantly writing data, sending it straight to the cloud. So police officers can't just stop their recording and delete it later, because whatever data is going to, was transmitted is going to automatically go straight to the cloud. And if the captain or their sergeant sees, missing footage, they're going to be able to reprimand the officer and be like, hey, why'd you turn this camera off? Because those cameras automatically start recording as soon as, 1, they reach 80 miles an hour, 2, they turn their lights on, or 3, they open their door, and 4, if they undo their gun from their gun belt.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I really do appreciate it. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.